Hello and welcome to the Riyal Deal, coming to you from the Al Arabiya English headquarters. This is your weekly bulletin, bringing you all the latest business news headlines and analysis from Saudi Arabia. Coming up, inflation in Saudi Arabia edges up slightly to 2.3%. Increased housing costs are singled out as being the main factor for this. We're going to be speaking to the CEO of the National Housing Company, which aims to deliver 600,000 housing units by the year 2030 and achieve a 70% home ownership rate right across the kingdom. Plus, we look ahead to the annual Falcon auction in Malham, which runs through the month of August. It's a big business generating millions of US dollars in sales, with prized Falcons fetching upwards of 50,000 US dollars. Hello and welcome to the program. Fresh data published by the General Authority for Statistics shows that inflation in Saudi Arabia has edged up slightly to 2.3%, while an increased cost in housing, notably rents and utilities, was the main reason for this, with prices in this category up 6.5%. Well, last month, the Saudi government announced measures aimed at balancing out demand and supply in Riyadh's real estate market, and several massive new developments are being built around the capital. Well, the International Monetary Fund says it expects Saudi inflation to remain steady at about 2%. Well, let's bring into the conversation Ali Raza, who is the Chief Investment Officer at Haytham and Company. Ali, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Just digesting those new figures with regards to inflation, what stands out as far as you're concerned?
Well, Tom, as it's become clear, I mean, a lot of the contributing factors to the rise in inflation this year can be attributed to the housing price increases. Now, it's important to know, I mean, this increase in inflation is not necessarily because of, a credit bubble or excessive speculative activities. It is resulting from changes in industry, changes in foreign investment. I mean, as we've spoken about recently, in Riyadh last year, we saw 600 new regional headquarters announced from the likes of Oracle, Amazon, Google. I mean, all the major enterprises you can think, not just in the traditional US tech sector, but across the globe. I mean, advanced industries, manufacturing, and this is having a direct impact on the population growth, on housing prices. Now, in the last couple of years, so from 2016 onwards, I mean, the average salaries for Saudis in the private sector have increased over 50%. So whilst there is inflation, yes, property prices are increasing. There is some greater room for additional supply. Demand is quite high for properties, not just in Riyadh, but across Saudi Arabia. This is also coupled with economic growth, an increase in average disposable income, an increase in the number of people in employment, significantly low unemployment rates compared to a few years ago. So all in all, I mean, any rises in inflation first, it can send a bit of a signal, depending on how it's framed, to the community. But the current rise in inflation is from positive changes in the economy and society. It is something that we should be conscious of, particularly in the context of housing. Affordability is a major topic, and the NHC, amongst other enterprises, are tackling this with the support of the public leadership and through private sector ambitions. There's significant efforts being made. I mean, for example, the required deposit amount for first home buyers was reduced from around nearly 30% to 5%. So there are a significant number of initiatives underway to tackle that in a positive sense.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a bit about demand and supply in the housing sector with our next guest, Mohammad Albuty from the National Housing Council. But it does seem, housing costs are heading upwards. I mean, anecdotally, what sort of evidence is there for that? I mean, how expensive are we talking here?
Look, they're heading upwards, I mean, a few percent every year. But once again, demand is at a peak at the moment and supply is catching up. Now, enterprises like the NHC and, Erosion Front, the various programs that are underway for mortgage affordability, all of these are coming together to ensure that people can continue to maintain affordability. While at the moment, I think there's been a significant increase in the economic growth rate, we anticipate that the supply will catch up with that. And of course, this is a demand and supply game, the basic principle of economic theory. So as time progresses in the coming years, I think we'll see that stabilize to an extent which keeps it affordable and accessible for the population.
And are we talking about a market in which people have tended to favour renting as opposed to buying? Any sort of particular trends in the Saudi market when it comes to housing?
Of course, ownership is preferred if possible, and it does come down to a question of affordability and the public leadership. I mean, Vision 2030, some of the objectives and some of the programs are tackling this specifically. The culture is towards ownership, if possible, and the public strategy and regulations and investment initiatives are all being geared towards maximizing ownership wherever possible.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that, Ali Raza, the Chief Investment Officer at Haytham & Company. We're going to be back with you again in just a moment. Well, all this ties in very neatly to our next story, which addresses, as we promised, the issue of supply in the housing market. Well, the National Housing Company, which comes under the Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs and Housing, is playing a leading role in the transformation of Saudi Arabia's housing sector. Well, with a target of delivering 600,000 units by 2030 and achieving a 70% home ownership rate, the NHC is driving a comprehensive urban renaissance right across the kingdom. Well, Mohammad Albuty is the CEO of the National Housing Company and joins us now. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us, sir. Can I just start by asking you, what is the role of the NHC and how does your strategy match up with Vision 2030?
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join you today on Riyal Deal. NHC, or National Housing Company, we see ourselves more than just a real estate developer. We work as a master developer, where we build and design modern, livable communities that improve the quality of life of our residents and drive economic growth on a long-term vision. NHC has a direct contribution to one of the major achievements of Saudi Vision 2030, which is the home ownership percentage. The home ownership target for the Saudi Vision or housing program is to reach 70% by 2030, 65% by 25. Actually, we, as a housing program, we achieved that a year ahead. In 24, we achieved 65% as a home ownership. NHC played a major role, has a direct contribution to that achievement, and we are continuing as a company for delivering and targeting the 70% by 2030. We are actively working 17 cities across the kingdom, 39 mega projects across the kingdom. We are managing 284 million square meter of lands. We have a pipeline to supply 600,000 units, valued as a value of just the residential part around $500 billion Saudi riyals. We have sold till today around more than 100,000 homes across the kingdom. We expect our communities to host more than 2 million residents across the communities that we are developing. We led just in 24 alone, we led almost 62% of all off-plan sales across the kingdom. We facilitated almost 30% of all subsidized home finance. We are actively supporting the Saudi Vision 2030, and it's one of the major players supporting the Saudi Vision, even through housing program or quality of life programs, or even other programs.
Okay, so clearly lots of new homes are being built across the kingdom, and as you say, this is all very much a part of Vision 2030. Just tell us, how would you assess the economic impact of the NHC?
Yes, you know, if you just look to the number that we just mentioned, you see the how is the impact through our activities. I'll take just a glance of 25. We expect NHC that will add close to 30 billion contribution to the GDP, which is equivalent to 1.1% of the non-oil GDP in 25. We will support more than 180,000 jobs in just the year of 25. This is equivalent to almost one job for every 84 jobs supported during the 25. This is just a clear sign of the impact of NHC and its operation to the economy and to different industries, constructions, and other real estate related industries.
Okay, so I mean, these are big numbers, aren't they? 1.1% of non-oil GDP, 180,000 jobs supported. Just tell us a bit about the sorts of partnerships, in particular international partnerships, that the NHC has right now.
Yes, as a strategy of NHC, we believe in partnership. We believe in collaboration with local and international developers. We believe in the partnership with international developer for building better communities that is globally inspired but locally rooted. We have a partnership and collaboration from Far East to the Far West, including Middle East, GCC, and Europe. Example, we have from Far East, we have a partner. We signed a partnership with the City Group, one of the leading groups in China. Very soon, we will announce a partnership with one of the leading Korean companies. From GCC, we have a partnership with Al-Khohaji. From Bahrain, from Egypt, from the Middle East, we have signed the two partnerships with Talat Mustafa Group and Mountain View. From Turkey, we had signed agreement with Amlak Konut. We signed a partnership with a company from Spain called the Orbes. And from the Far West, we signed or we started our partnership 4 years ago with the K Hovnanian, which is one of the listed companies in the US that started with us 4 years ago. Those agreements with international developers worth about 40 billion of investments in our projects, which is a clear sign and of the potential trust of the Saudi market in general, the real estate development industry in Saudi, and the trust of the national real estate developer in the kingdom, which is National Housing Company, NHC.
Okay, now we've already talked about Vision 2030, and I'm sure you're aware the clock is ticking. We're just 4 years, 5 months, and a couple of weeks away from Vision 2030, and before that year becomes a reality. What are your priorities at the NHC in the meantime?
We have, several priorities. Our main and the most important priority is to supply 600,000 homes by 2030. This is a major mandate, supplying to the market, contribution to home ownership, supplying even for beneficiaries, balancing the prices, meeting the demand of the housing in general in the next 5 to 6 years. Such a huge mandate and priority give us second priority, which is securing the supply chain for building those communities. So one major priority for us, how to secure the supply chain. This is a priority for us, big initiative to secure the materials on time and on budget. And to secure the supply chain, we started to localize those materials to ensure availability of the materials and construction materials, and even contractors to deliver such a big mandate of supplying those homes. In addition, we have one of our priorities, how to have our relation with our customer with a very user-friendly journey with our customers. Where we have a digital arm for digital arm, we spin that digital arm for a separate company. We called it NHC Innovation, to work in the services, real estate services, and city operation services for our communities and even for the whole kingdom.
Okay, so lots happening on the supply side, 600,000 new houses by the year 2030. Presumably, lots happening as well on the demand side of things as well. Just talk us through the sort of main trends, if you will.
You know, we work and had planned based on the demand, and with the central government as well, how to get the land bank that can support us to meet that demand. In our ecosystem and model, we sell units for beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries. So based on our studies, we know there is a huge demand from locals, even from now non-Saudis. There is some circumstances around that, let's say, industry, which is including how to get the right finance for those homes to be sold. So we study that, we study the trends, we study the any circumstances, especially for construction cost, financing or interest rate, and best we deal with it month by month. How to have different option of home financing, even cash for cash customer through banks, changing the design of the unit to track the ticket price of the units based on any changes in the market dynamics and the trend of the markets, to make us able to sell those units, get sales proceed, and then deliver the communities within the time.
Okay, now you touched on this at the beginning of the interview, sir, but we've been talking a lot about Vision 2030 on this program, and how quality of life is really central to that vision. What's the exact role you see housing playing in that vision?
For NHC, always we speak that we are not home builder. Our mandate is not to build homes or boxes. It's more beyond that. It's how to improve quality of life, how people can live their best life within those communities. So yes, it is right, one major mandate for us to supply the 600,000 units, but within a quality of life communities. So from master planning, we are thinking of how people will live in those communities. We consider all criteria: the street, how we ensure that the street you drive on is accessible, sidewalk that you walk in, how it is peaceful and safe, the landscape, how it is green and peaceful, the community center, how it is within reach in less than 5 minutes, the schools that the kids will attend, how it's close to their homes in a safe environment, and all other aspects that post handover, how the resident will best or live in those communities of their best life. They can enjoy, can play, can work within those communities. So all these we consider it in early planning, in our master planning, and how we will have this concept is active, people live it post handover of those communities.
Okay, and just before we wrap up, I mean, I'm sure there are quite a lot of challenges as well that face the housing sector and face, many aspects of such an enormous transformation. Just tell us a bit more about how you're addressing those challenges.
If you mean the challenges, in construction, real estate development, there is usually there's two kind of challenges. One related to supply, one related to demand or the finance. So usually one of the major challenges is the ensuring the supply chain and the materials within the target prices that we planned for. Our model is off-plan sales, so we sell, then we build. So one of the challenges, how to ensure that we get the prices that once we set the sales price, we get the prices that ensure that we can deliver within budget. To overcome such a challenge, we started one, as I just mentioned, one major initiative, how to secure the supply chain locally and how to localize it, and how to sign a frame agreement to hedge the prices for materials during the construction time to ensure that we can overcome such a challenge of let's say, construction spikes, so we can overcome it. On the other hand, usually with changing in the interest rate, this is affect immediately the affordability and the product. So sometimes we have to deal always with the interest rate. When it comes high, we have to deal with it. When the interest rate decreased, then we deal with it with different products. So it is a challenge, but it is always a challenge, and we have to deal with it. Example now, once the interest rate become higher than 24 and 22 or 23, we change our product. We had even introduced a different financing option, different payment method. We increased the cash customers, and just to let you know, in 24 was the interest rate was the highest. At that year, 24, it was the highest for us as a sales. We sold in 24 more than 23 and 22 together. Even as the interest rate was higher, because we introduced different products, different payment method, different financing option for our customer. Demand always there, but we have to make our product accessible, sellable to our clients.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. A real pleasure speaking to you. Mohammad Albuty, the CEO of the National Housing Company. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
Okay, well, I'm here with Ali Raza, the Chief Investment Officer of Haytham & Company, who's been listening in there with us. Ali, just in terms of what Ms. Albuty said, what stood out for you?
Well, first of all, Tom, the sheer scale, I mean, 600,000 homes, it's no joke. It's quite a sizable operation that is underway here. One of the key pillars of Vision 2030, I mean, there's a major emphasis on ensuring, obviously, the economic resilience and prosperity, but it's livability and social structure for the Saudi population. Now, it's an interesting market because not only do you have the Saudi population to think about, but there is an influx of international workers, expats, investors coming into the region. So the NHC has a very important task. I mean, 600,000 homes is a large volume, even if everything is in place. But not only is it 600,000 homes they have to plan for, they have to ensure that the entire supply chain is in place, that they have the approach and technology to tackle the changes in the market conditions. So as you mentioned, in 2024, the interest rates grew, but actually their volume grew larger. Now, what's interesting in addition to that is actually, Tom, 600,000 homes, but they're priced in Riyadh, especially around 20% less than the market prices. So not only are they tackling the need to build supply chain resilience to deliver projects to that scale, but also do it at a price that is affordable for the population. So I think all of that, all combined, I mean, it's quite a sizable undertaking, and the numbers that they're delivering and the success that they're demonstrating is quite incredible.
So what you're saying is basically this is going to go a long way towards boosting supply, those 600,000 houses that you mentioned. And that's going to go a long way, isn't it? I mean, that's an awful lot of houses to meeting the demand that we were talking about earlier on, when we were talking about how, in fact, the scarcity of housing had been driving up the cost of housing.
Absolutely. I mean, the 600,000 homes by NHC in itself is a sizable number, but actually there's a number of initiatives underway. I mean, the Russian group, which was recently rebranded and it took a broader view than their original mandate, is making a significantly similar sized impact across Saudi Arabia. And you know, when you look at the work of these different groups, the NHC, Russian group, I mean, there's the Sakani program, which is in place to maximize financing affordability and accessibility. All of this is actually coupled also with incredible master planning. So as Mr. Albuty was saying, you know, these are not just homes being sprung up in any shape, size, or format. There's an incredible degree of planning that goes into the master plan development, ensuring that the cities are livable, that the individual developments are livable. I mean, one of the most interesting projects in Riyadh at the moment is the development of the Sports Boulevard. You know, Riyadh, which traditionally has not really been a walkable city. I don't know if you've been out for a jog or a walk recently, Tom, but it's not traditionally been the most walkable city, but there's an incredible project underway. You know, nearly 3 million square meters of developments that will encompass anything from horse riding to just, you know, walkable pathways that people can go for a jog on and ride their bikes and really, you know, live amongst the greenery, which even rather in the middle of, you know, Saudi Arabia, a place that we commonly think of as a desert, it's, you know, it will demonstrate that an oasis is possible here as well. So the work by NHC, Russian, I mean, the many developers that are currently underway with these efforts, balancing this with the financing requirements, with the changing market conditions, the fluctuations in interest rates and inflation, and ensuring that you are turning, you know, what is traditionally a desert nation into rich oasis, I think it's quite incredible. So this is what's showing through at multiple levels of Vision 2030.
Yeah, and of course, Vision 2030 got mentioned more than once during that conversation with Mr. Albuty. I mean, it sounds like what NHC is doing is right at the core of Vision 2030. Of
course. I mean, you know, you have a very young population, as we've spoken about on a number of occasions. You know, around 50% under the age of 25, and you know, this is a young nation that is growing, working, thriving, participating in society as they move into the next stages of their life. Of course, they're all thinking about home ownership. Recently, I mean, the age for accessing some of these financing programs was reduced to 21, so people earlier in life could participate in it. And yeah, of course, I mean, Vision 2030, the premise is, you know, a thriving nation, an economy that's prospering, and an ambitious nation. And if people have their bare necessities met, at the very least, you know, let alone social prosperity, then it goes a long way towards the overall ambitions of the nation, economic or social.
Just to wrap up this conversation, Ali, I mean, affordable housing and cities like Riyadh, I mean, they're not sort of things you hear sort of said in the same sentence very often. I mean, it's expensive, isn't it? I mean, what provisions are there to make sure that people can afford their homes? Just do a little recap for us, if you will.
Sure. So the NHC, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, they are pricing a lot of their homes 20% less than the market price, right? Like, that's one aspect. Now, there's also a range of different housing unit types that are being developed, you know, multi-unit dwellings, villas. There's incredible amount of effort going into ensuring the master plans are livable and yet making use of as much space as possible. As Mr. Albuty said, you know, one of the things they have to work through is access to land banks. So it takes a lot of, you know, management of a lot of different characteristics and variables to ensure that's the case. Now, Riyadh, yes, is increasing. I mean, the prices are increasing. We are seeing inflation, but as I mentioned earlier, we're also seeing average wages increase. There is an increased participation in the workforce. Unemployment rates are at record low numbers. You know, we have some of the world's largest enterprises setting up their regional headquarters and creating new opportunities in addition to the ones already in place. So there's a lot of factors working in favor towards increasing not just disposable income, but ensuring accessibility and affordability as much as possible at the price level. And perhaps finally, one of the comments that Mr. Albuty made on a number of occasions there was the work around ensuring the securitization of supply chain. So Saudi Arabia, as a general thematic across all of the industries and the work that's taking place, has taken an approach of regionalizing and localizing as much of the supply chain as possible to ensure that it's secured and that costs are managed as effectively as possible. So, you combine all of these factors, they go hand in hand, one feeds the next, and that ultimately is what will continue to bring stability into that market.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Ali Raza, Chief Investment Officer at Haytham & Company. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Let's take a quick look at some of the other stories from the week. The Ministry of Commerce reveals fresh data which points to the increasingly important role played by younger businessmen and businesswomen. The number of youth-owned businesses is fast approaching the 500,000 mark, representing 38% of all active commercial registrations in Saudi Arabia. App development, AI and gaming are the fastest growing sectors for these new startups. According to a new UN report, Saudi Arabia led the world in terms of international tourism spending growth during Q1. Compared to the same period in 2019, the kingdom saw a 102% increase in international visitor numbers and spending, significantly outpacing the global average of 3%. Well, tourist spending in the kingdom stood at more than $40 billion last year. That's up nearly 14%. Uber is teaming up with the Saudi-backed electric vehicle maker Lucid and the self-driving tech startup Nuro. This to launch a robo-taxi fleet. Well, Uber says it plans to use at least 20,000 Lucid Gravity SUVs over a period of 6 years. Well, the ride-sharing service says it will launch the first vehicle in 2026. And finally, falconry is one of Saudi Arabia's great traditions and is a hobby that is deeply rooted in the local culture. Well, preparations are now well underway for one of the big events in the falconry calendar. It is a major auction in Malham, which is just north of Riyadh, and it kicks off in early August, well, cementing Saudi Arabia's emergence as a global falconry hub. The auction attracts people from right across the globe who buy and sell these highly prized falcons, which can fetch upwards of $50,000. Well, last year's edition of the Saudi Falcons Club auction generated around $3 million in sale. Some 866 falcons were sold. Well, Ali Raza is still here with us now. Ali, I don't know if you take a keen interest in falconry, but those are quite big numbers, aren't they, for these prized birds?
Depending on how you value the prize of a bird, Tom, that could be a subjective question. But His Royal Highness King Abdulaziz bin Saud, the founder of Saudi Arabia, was a very well-known falconry enthusiast, and the falcon has a lot of significance to the Arab culture, the Saudi origin, the history. There is a lot of significance to the tribal culture of Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a falcon dive, Tom, but the peregrine falcon, which is actually one of the two breeds that you'll find in Saudi Arabia, will do a nosedive at over 300 kilometers an hour. That's 300 kilometers an hour. That's quite something, right? So if you get an opportunity to see one make that move, and there is a festival later this year, we saw the King Abdulaziz Falcon Festival last year in 25, I believe, between the months of October and November. There's another festival coming up. If you get the opportunity, would certainly encourage anyone to go and take a look if you appreciate that kind of phenomena of nature. It is the fastest animal in the world, and it's quite a majestic one.
Yeah, that's a great statistic there. They're on the speed of a falcon. I've only ever held one, and I can tell you they're pretty heavy, and I can't tell you exactly how heavy, but my arm was aching. I mean, just to wrap up, I don't know if you've ever sort of come up close and personal with a falcon, but I mean, what do you think is being done in Saudi Arabia to keep this tradition alive? And do you think events like this auction are a part of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a number of festivals. I mean, as I just mentioned, there was a festival last year, and there will be another one held this year. There is a foundation dedicated to ensuring that falconry thrives and prospers as an industry. And I mean, Saudi Arabia in general takes a very keen interest in preserving its heritage. You know, outside of this subject, I mean, if you take a drive through Riyadh, you'll see new buildings and architecture pop up anywhere. And I, you know, often will share with people how fascinating it is to see the architect of these dwellings, you know, throughout Riyadh, really closely matching the heritage of Riyadh and blending in with the desert. And, you know, throughout the many different aspects of society or industry, I think there's a huge emphasis on preserving the Saudi roots and culture whilst building for the future. And this is a cornerstone of that culture.
Yep, and something that UNESCO recognizes as well. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. Ali Raza, Chief Investment Officer of Haytham & Company. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tom.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of The Riyal Deal here on Al Arabiya English. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you again very soon.